Hello, everyone. Welcome to New Gen Politics. So, I just finished watching the Tucker Carlson Ted Cruz interview, and it was a disaster. Was it funny? Yes. Was it a total name calling, ad hominem, pointless conversation? Yeah, pretty much. The only thing we really learned from it is a little bit more details about the perspectives of kind of two representatives of the right at the moment. Ted Cruz has fallen out of favor with the right, since 2016. He is a senator still. He is relatively influential. He's not one of the mainstays anymore, but he represents the last remnants of the neocon in the public perspective. He represents the old boomers who watch Fox News, right? Tucker Carlson, although not totally, loved by the young generations in the America First, not loved entirely by MAGA, is a better representation of the conservative populist movement than Ted Cruz, obviously. And so you have these two conflicting narratives of what do we do with Iran? And is any action getting involved with Iran actually beneficial to the United States and its people? And that was kind of Tucker's main premise was, I think we have way too many problems here, and you guys focus way too much on foreign policy for things that don't help Americans. And despite Ted Cruz agreeing with Tucker Carlson on everything on paper, when it came to his actual policy positions, they were all completely opposite. Like, he's like, I only want to do things if it benefits Americans. And Tucker's like, cool, how does a war with Iran benefit Americans? It's like, oh, well, because it does. No follow-up, no real explanation. And he wasn't literally saying, let's get involved in war with Iran, but he was saying, like, let's do these special operations, these actions. Let's call for regime change. And it's like, that's obviously going to lead to a war. If you don't think that's going to lead to a war, you're crazy. Calling to, eliminate in one form or another the leaders of a foreign government, calling to destabilize the whole, upper echelon of that country, is just going to lead to total chaos, right? When you say that they're not allowed nuclear weapons when their greatest adversary, Israel, is allowed to have them, even though technically neither of them should have them. When you start to kind of take away Iran, in their perspectives, ability to defend themselves, of course they're going to feel like an animal backed into a corner and want to lash out. So doing these things is probably not beneficial to America because it's not our problem, not our hemisphere, not our problem. And Ted Cruz was kind of making it seem like, oh, this is our problem because Israel's our ally. And it's like, well, we need an ally in the Middle East because we start wars in the Middle East, which causes us to need an ally over there. But if we were just not over there and we were focusing on the homeless, the drugs, the crime in America, the low education, the poor infrastructure, the debt, if we were focusing on those problems and we weren't, actively destabilizing every single one of Israel's neighbors, then maybe we could not have to be over there because we wouldn't be causing problems we need to go solve. That was kind of Tucker's perspective, and Ted Cruz disagreed with it. And so I think we just saw more of that conflict going on between those two parts of the right. I think, personally, what's going to win out in the end, maybe not in this circumstance because Trump is still in office, he's still a Zionist. I think that fundamentally the right is just going to become more isolationist. They don't want anything to do with these foreign countries. I mean, Tucker came out and said, like, hey, you supported Ukraine and gave them all this money, and that didn't help Americans. So why should we take your word for it? And you were wrong about, Ukraine being amazing and they're going to win and all this stuff. Why should we take your word about this Israel thing? That, somehow this is our problem. We have to get involved. We got to call for regime change. Why do we got to take your word for it? And obviously Ted Cruz got really irritated by that, started calling him, like anti-Semitic immediately, right? Hey, I have legitimate questions about, does Israel have overwhelming influence more so than any other country in the United States? Legitimate question to ask. Maybe it's not true, but, a question that is valid to ask. Ted Cruz, immediately, what are you, anti-Semitic? What do you hate the Jews? And Tucker's like, I'm talking about the country of Israel. He's like, yeah, you don't like Jews? And it's like, okay, wait a minute. If this was anywhere else, that argument would not hold up, right? If we were talking about Vatican City, and say Vatican City was, wanting to destabilize all its neighbors and called on the U.S. to fight its wars for them and pay them billions of dollars every year, And I say, hey, wait a minute. How is Vatican City invading Italy helping American interests? And you said, what? You hate all Catholics? What's wrong with you? Like, that's not a legitimate, right? Like, that's not a legitimate response. You'd be like, wait, I'm talking about the country. I'm talking about the country's actions. It's like, yeah, you hate Catholics because Vatican City's, you don't want to help Vatican City invade Italy. You don't want to help Vatican City invade France. What's wrong with you, anti-Catholic? So that's kind of the argument. And Tucker's like, I'm not talking about the religion. I'm not talking about the race. I'm talking about the government of Israel. But they want to conflate these things. They want to say, like, if you can't separate them. So you can't say, I don't support Benjamin Netanyahu, but, I think religious freedom is fine. You can't say that. It's like, you got to love everything about it or hate everything about it, or they accuse you of hating everything about it. So that was kind of like the last straw, really, in civility for the discussion when, Ted Cruz called Tucker Carlson an anti-Semite, just evolved into a yelling contest from there. But I think it goes to show, like, these parts of the right are breaking apart further and further. I don't think we can reconcile these opinions. I think it's the remnants of the neocons are still there. They are still producing more neocons, younger people. There are millennials who are neocons. There's not that many, but you don't need that many in government. The whole government's run by like a couple thousand people. I mean, if you really even just talk about the three branches, it's like, less than 600. So when you're talking about how many people you need to run the government based on your political beliefs, it's not that many. So they're still trying to produce neocons. They're still there. They're waiting for Trump to be gone because Trump is anti-war. He might get us involved, but like in his heart, I don't think he wants to start a war. If he did, he would have done it immediately. He had every excuse to start one. So he could have done it immediately. I think he really doesn't want war. He might do it anyways. He might not be strong enough to say to the bitter end, we're going to do whatever it takes to not have Americans be killed. But fundamentally, Trump is a stopgap for the neocons. When he's gone, when his term runs out, the neocons will probably try to rear their ugly head again, throw up Ted Cruz or somebody else, try to get the neocons back into power. And I think the majority of people on the right are not for that anymore. I think the populace is so far disconnected. I think more now than ever, you're seeing a major disconnect between both the populations and their political parties. So on both sides of the aisle, the average person, regardless of political affiliation, does not feel like their political party that aligns closer to them represents them at all, basically. So you're seeing that massive disconnect. And Tucker is just like warning, like, hey, we got to focus on these domestic problems because focusing abroad is not, nobody cares about that anymore. And it's about to be like full isolationist because people tend to have a massive reversal, right? When things go too far one way, it's not a slow inkling back to the other way. It's like a full on snap. Like you go from communism to fascism and vice versa like that. It's really quick. So what Tucker's kind of saying is like, we got to focus on these problems at home because like eventually the foreign policy won't even matter because we won't even have a country at that point. So, and then you're talking about isolationism. You don't want isolationism. Like I agree with Ted Cruz's premise, not in his actual policies, but the premise of like, yeah, you got to do some stuff on the world stage. Like you got to interact with other countries. You got to have diplomacy. You do have to exert some level of strength, but that doesn't mean you got to declare war on people. But if you go so far into only focusing overseas, sending all of our money overseas, then immediately at some point in time, it's going to snap back and we're going to say nothing to anybody. We don't want to deal with anybody. We don't want to talk to anybody. We've got way too many problems going on here. And it may not even be a conscious decision. It just may be, hey, we don't even have the influence to deal with the rest of the world at the moment. We're too weak. It might not even be an active decision to pull back. It may just be a passive one of we can't do it anymore. We've given all our money away. So I like to see these sort of things because it's a good it's a good refresher of, hey, look how far we've come since 2016. Like Ted Cruz was the front runner, 2015 into 2016 before Trump, right? He was kind of the one. If Trump didn't run, Ted Cruz would have won. He was the darling. He was the pick. Then you had Ron DeSantis, better, still not great. I think in 2028, you'll probably have some real genuine America first people who don't say, well, it's an whatever I declare as America first is America first, like Trump's kind of doing right now. You'll have people who say, like Tucker said and like Ted Cruz said, but then immediately contradicted himself, that if it is not in the benefit of the American people, then it's not America first. So I think we're still seeing that with Ted Cruz of like, we say one thing, we do another. And when Tucker was questioning on that, Ted Cruz got very defensive. And I think because he knows that he can't, really defend a lot of these positions. He's learned the lingo, he's learned the phrases, but at its core, it's the actions of what makes America first, America first. It's not the rhetoric, it's not the policies, it's what is the true belief, what's the worldview, what are the actions we take as a country to help the average American citizen, not just a party, not just the government, not just the illusion of what America's allegedly supposed to be about from the perspective of the people who run it, whether that's financial or military or whatever. That's my thoughts on this. You made it all the way through the video. I appreciate it. If you like the content, like, share, subscribe. Let me know what you think down in the comments below. And thank you for watching.